So I don't know about you all. I hope you all had a good new year. It's a brand new year ahead of us. We're all kind of, the whole world is thinking about new beginnings, thinking about goals, thinking about accomplishing things they've never accomplished before. And I hope that you are on that list. Don't resist the peer pressure. It's good peer pressure in this case. The only thing that's bad about setting goals is not following through. And if there's anything you've gotten out of Dev Amplifier, it is be intentional. If there's anything, that's the one thing you need to get from this program is be intentional. And so if you're intentional about what you do and about how you approach things, it doesn't matter how many times in years past you've set goals and didn't follow through. If you're intentional and you hold yourself accountable and you find other people to hold you accountable, you can accomplish those goals. And setting goals doesn't have to be a bad thing. Hey, Jose. So let's talk about capability, because I think that a lot of times when we think of senior developers or really strong developers, great developers, we think of their capabilities. Usually, first thing we think of, their ability to solve problems, their ability to jump into any situation with confidence and solve it, to build incredible architecture, to write incredibly maintainable, clean code, to be able to work with any kind of coworker without getting stressed out, being able to interface with a complicated, agile project management environment or system and be compatible with it. These are great capabilities, and we see these in senior developers all the time. And so we're going to talk about those kinds of capabilities for the next month. That's the theme for this month. Tonight, we're talking about high impact capabilities. So I want to draw a distinction. I want to draw a line between the myriad capabilities that we can learn and spend time and invest in personally and professionally. And I want to draw a line between all of that and a handful of high value, high impact capabilities that you should probably pursue with much more intentionality than you do your typical run-of-the-mill capabilities. What I'm not going to do for you tonight is I'm not going to give you necessarily a list of things that you need to get good at. I'll give you a few of my own suggestions, but the point tonight is not to give you a list of capabilities, of high impact capabilities. It's to give you the skill for you to be able to determine and discover on your own what high impact capabilities are for you. So that's the point of tonight. And the quest for tonight is also meant to help you to develop that skill. So it's all about that. It's not exactly the skills, the capabilities that you need to get from tonight. It's the skill to be able to discover them and notice them and become intentional about them. So let's talk about capabilities in the first place. So in the English language, there are a lot of words that might come to mind when you think of the word capability. What are some words that you all think of when you hear capability? Synonyms, feelings, attitudes.
Skilled.
Skills, okay.
Ability.
What's that?
Ability.
Ability, okay, yep.
Competence, proficiency.
Yep.
Trusted.
I couldn't hear you there.
Trusted.
Trusted. Mm-hmm. How about values? Can capabilities come out of values? How about attitudes? Could attitude be a capability?
Yes.
A capability is anything that can get you from point A to point B. anything that you can utilize to get you from point A to point B. Usually when we think of point A to point B, we think of traveling, get into a car. But if you don't have any capabilities in driving a car, then the car means nothing to you. The car has capabilities. And so if you've got a self-driving car, one of those Teslas, then, and it's legal for it to drive itself, or if you live in a country where they don't know about it yet and they don't care and there are no laws about it, then you can get in the car, and the car has the capabilities. It can go from point A to point B. But attitudes definitely can be a capability, because they can get you from point A to point B in relationships, or in understanding, or in solving a problem. Think about it. The wrong attitude could keep you from solving a problem. The right attitude could have the exact opposite effect. So having attitudes, correct attitudes about things is absolutely a capability. How about potential? What do you think? This one's kind of abstract.
Well, potential doesn't necessarily mean that that you have that, let's say, skill set or ability right away, but you do have the, if you apply yourself, you can obtain it.
Right.
So it's almost like a seed instead of the plant.
Mm-hmm. It's the point before point A, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. So in a very few cases, potential can be a capability, and that's in one example of that is when you are applying for a job and they see potential in you, and they decide to give you the job because of your potential. And part of that has to do with your capacity. Capacity being like, if you're a bucket, how big is your bucket? How much water can we fit in your bucket? Or if you're a human being, how much greatness can we fit into you? How much greatness can we get out of you? Your potential is something that some hiring managers can see and might hire you because of it. So that's one thing. Also, you might end up not outside of the hiring scenario. You might actually be chosen for a role knowing that you're not really ready for it, but because of your potential and maybe because of a track record of being able to take on things that you've never done before, might be a way. But it's a very thin sliver. In general, potential has to be converted into kinetic energy before it's really useful. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. And if unless something is acting upon it, it's really worthless. Just like money that's in a bank. If the money is in the bank, it really does very little for you until you actually get it out and spend it. Your capability is the same way. So part of what I want you to be doing with this month is to start questioning yourself. What is your potential? How deep is your bucket? How much greatness can people get out of you if you're working for somebody else? What kind of let me put it this way too. Your potential is like an onion. You've got what you have now, which is the outside of the onion, but your potential is what's still inside of the onion. So as you it's kind of the opposite or the reverse effect, but as you begin converting your potential energy into kinetic energy, it's almost like you're peeling back another layer of the onion. There are more layers down there, but in order to get to them, you have to peel back a layer first. You've got tremendous potential. each one of you. I still have potential. I'm old. I've got a bunch of gray hair, but I still have to learn new stuff. I've still got tremendous potential. Still have things that inside of me that are still undiscovered, and the same goes for you. So what happens typically is people discover that potential and they peel back the layers of that potential almost accidentally. Like I've said before, so much of what we do as human beings is we just let happen accidentally. And it's your job as a member of Dev Amplifier to start getting intentional about that and start actually noticing and doing things on purpose, like noticing your potential, taking your next step towards developing the next capability, and then continuing to peel back and peel back and peel back. So let's talk about impact. Or before I do that, let me stop and take any comments or questions or complaints. All right, silence is acceptance. So let's talk about impact. So impact is both positive. Well, it can be positive or negative. Probably not very often both, but it is something that is often we think of as a positive thing. Now, if we're talking about an asteroid impacting the Earth, that would be kind of negative. But if we're talking about making a difference in our community or making a difference in our team, making a difference in ourselves and our family, that's usually thinking positively. That's a positive impact. And so I really want to focus on the positive impact that our capabilities can make. Some of the things that our capabilities can impact are kind of obvious, but let's talk about a few aspects of these things. The project that you're working on. Certain capabilities that you use make a bigger impact than others on your project. And an impact on a project or a company could be revenue. It could be revenue related. In fact, it's almost always revenue related. So even if you're working on a project that has not seen real users yet, has not brought any real value to a company yet, that's the end game. That's where that project is headed. So very rarely would a company start a project if it doesn't have some impact on revenue. It's going to have an impact on revenue on one of four spectrums. It's either going to create new revenue, or it's going to protect revenue. Creating revenue or protecting revenue. Or it's going to reduce costs or eliminate costs. Or avoid costs. So reduce, eliminate, or avoid costs. So it's always going to come down to revenue. Let's see. I'll give you an example from what Nick is working on right now. Nick is working on an innovative platform that allows companies and schools and universities to document capabilities, skills and capabilities, and make them discoverable to students. And put them and arrange them and organize them in a way that it makes it to where anybody can work in the system, and then any student can reap the benefits. It has not turned a profit yet. It hasn't even been seen by a client yet, but it is going to reduce costs in some ways. It's going to protect revenue in some ways, and it's going to generate new revenue. So that project is making a big, his capabilities on that project are making a big impact. Some other ways to impact are people. So your capabilities can have an impact on the people around you in your family, your work, your social circle. So thinking about work, your capabilities as a developer, as a person, make an impact on the culture in your company. so not all capabilities need to be technical capabilities. Sometimes capabilities need to be, I don't piss everybody off every time I open my mouth. Have you ever known somebody that's just like extremely abrasive and just no one wants to be around them, and every time they talk, everybody gets their stress levels up, and their blood pressure goes up, and people decide they start brushing up their LinkedIn profiles because they can't stand working with this person. You know, we none of you are like that, but that person who you might be thinking of, I've had a few of those in my life, need to learn capabilities of just being a friend, or being social, or knowing their impact on other people. They have a negative impact. Also, your capabilities can have a very positive impact on the environment where you're working. They can have an impact on the team health. If you are a peacemaker, you have a capability of being able to improve the health of your team by making peace in situations that are tense. Your capabilities can also make an impact on you, on yourself. You can, I'm looking at my notes and I wrote something that doesn't make sense to me anymore, but your capabilities can make an impact on your enjoyment of your work. Your capabilities can help you be more fulfilled at work, in your work, in the things that you do. So let's talk about the impact of capabilities in general. So I want to name a few capabilities, and I want to see if you all can give me a high, medium, low of each one of these things. So I'm going to throw one out, and then you all just unmute mics and go at it. Tell me whether you think it's high, medium, low. It doesn't matter if we're walking on each other. It doesn't matter if we disagree. That might actually make it more interesting, because then we can figure out what everybody's thinking. So TDD.
I
High.
High impact. Now we're talking about positive, of course, positive impact. If you don't know what TDD is, it's totally okay. Architecture.
Aye.
Aye.
High.
Codes or comments in code.
Medium.
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 Okay. API documentation, writing.
High.
High.
API documentation, reading.
Medium.
High.
How can reading it be medium if writing it is high?
Well,
Nobody-
you don't sometimes you don't need everything. You don't need to read everything, but you do need to write everything.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
If you make it predictable, you don't need to read the whole story. You know where it's gonna end if you follow the good practices for REST, right? Like,
Yeah. Following best practices for REST APIs.
Aye.
That's a capability. Yeah.
High.
NPM audit.
Low.
Medium.
I could
Okay,
go with
low.
both. I could go with low, as long as as long as it's done by somebody else. YAML.
I'd say medium, but I mean, I haven't seen it that often. I will say that I had a technical was the seen it, but
AWS API Gateway.
I would say that might depend actually.
So that's high,
Medium maybe.
medium, got it. Um, AWS AIM or IAM, sorry.
Hi.
That would be high.
And I'm actually trying to think of low ones to see what you all think, but I'm having a hard time coming up with low ones.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was me.
Oh, using noise canceling microphones.
Medium.
It's low for me.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Medium.
low.
It's low until you have to listen to somebody else that's not using a noise canceling microphone and they have a noisy background. Active listening,
High.
High.
public
Aye.
speaking,
Medium.
Yeah, medium or low. I can do without it.
personal
Medium.
hygiene.
That's a high.
That's
Aye.
high after COVID.
But we're all remote.
No,
Even
we are now, but in person, it's not very fun.
All right. Let's what's that?
I said I worked with someone with that issue before.
That's rough. That's rough. And it's hard to be around it, but it's also hard to bring it up. Like, who's going to bring that up? So obviously some capabilities are more important than others. And I think one of the problems that a lot of developers have, in fact, I know it's a problem that a lot of developers have because I've been researching this, is that there's such a buffet of stuff that we want to learn, that we need to, that we feel like we need to learn, or that we want to learn, stuff that's like really everybody's talking about it, like Flutter. Everybody's talking about Flutter. If you don't know what Flutter is, then you should at least read up on it and find out what it is so that you can be a part of those conversations. But people are talking about Dart and Flutter. It just seems like really cool technology. It's made by Google. It's a different language, and that language is well spoken of. So it's kind of like, hey, maybe I should go and learn Flutter. I don't know. Should you? Should you go and learn Dart? And these are the questions that are kind of haunting a lot of us. It's if I need to do this, or I need to find one of these, but there are just people talking all over the web about like the struggle of knowing what to do next. I stopped struggling so much with that a few years ago. But then the moment that I decided to try to learn a new language after a few years of not learning a new language, I chose a language that this time I usually choose pretty well, but this time it didn't work out so well. And it was a language that still hasn't taken off and probably won't. And that was ReasonML. ReasonML is a fun little, for me, it was fun, a fun little language, and Facebook has been really investing in it. I think that they're kind of backing away from it now, but you know, if I had been banking my career on choosing the right language, then I chose wrong. And I got to experience at least a little bit of this problem. It's a buffet. And there's not enough room on your plate to be able to learn it all. You can't learn everything that is out there that everybody's telling you you should learn probably in your entire lifetime, nor should you try. But it still leaves that question hanging, like, what in the world do we do? what do we try? What do we try to learn? And I think a lot of times we end up spending time trying to accumulate capabilities that are just going to solve a problem, which is fine. But when it comes time to actually pick a thing to learn, then we have an opportunity to go through a little bit more thought process and be a little bit more intentional about what capabilities we're going to add to ourselves. And so what I want to challenge you to do is to think about a few different criteria around you. Think about the impact that it's going to make on you. Maybe it would make you the happiest person on the planet Earth if you could learn Dart and start making little side projects in Flutter. That sounds great. Another way to impact yourself is to impact your income. So maybe there just happens to be a budding job market in Flutter or ReasonML or Golang or some language like that. That's an opportunity to intentionally add a capability to yourself that makes a big impact on you as a person because of your income. So that might be one reason why you choose a certain language, but thinking about that impact that you can make on yourself, happiness, your enjoyment of a project, your income, your fulfillment, your employment. Maybe you're looking for a specific job and you need this capability. So think about the impact that that capability can make on you. Also, think about the impact that capability can have on your on the people around you. So your team. Think about whether a capability that you're considering would have an impact, a positive impact on the environment, on the culture, on the health of your team. And so I might be talking about a technology. I might be talking about a soft skill or a mentality, a mindset that you should adopt. For instance, I'll give you a really good example. Your company is maybe it's really struggling to move out of a waterfall kind of style of management. They're trying to move towards agile because everybody says agile is way better. That lean and agile are things that can help teams to work better together, be more productive, happier, all of the above. It ticks off all the boxes that are good for a company. And so the company is trying to move towards agile. Now, from experience, moving from waterfall or any kind of non-agile management style, going to agile, it can be very painful and difficult because it's kind of a full-on mindset shift that you really need the entire company to get on board with. And so if you decide that you could decide that becoming an agile minded software developer or somebody who's very compatible with the agile frameworks, you could learn that capability, and that could make a tremendous impact on your team health or the environment or the culture of your team or of your department or your company. You could make a major impact, just one person, because a lot of times teams really struggle because everybody is just sitting around complaining about what's going on, about, hey, I don't like this Scrum stuff. Oh, why do we have to stand up in a daily stand-up? Or too many meetings, things like that. And if everybody's sitting around commiserating and complaining, then it can be a really miserable existence and a miserable job, and everybody starts updating their LinkedIn profiles. But if there's even one person, one developer on a team that has adopted that mindset, then they can start planting little seeds here and there. And the minute listen, promise, try this. If you're ever in one of those complaining parties and everybody's just sitting around complaining about something, try this. Just try putting out one positive statement about that is in opposition to the thing that everybody's complaining about. 9 times out of 10, that whole commiseration party will stop because one person decided to put out something positive. One person decided to go against the flow and stop complaining. That's powerful. And so that's just an example of how learning like a capability like agile mindset could have a tremendous impact on the people around you. So another thing that you should think about as you're thinking about what kinds of skills, what kinds of capabilities you might want to adopt, think about the impact that it could have on your company or on your project team, on the project itself and the code. Now, a lot of times this is going to be a hard skill, like a technical skill, but the same thing could be said about agile thinking. But let's talk about hard skills just for a minute. It's very possible that especially if you're planning on being with this company for a while, that if you could devote some of your time, some of your extra time or your interest in a skill that actually helps that project to succeed, then you would have a major impact on, or those capabilities would have a major impact on the project and could end up being really good for you too, because you will eventually get that credit for doing the things that you're doing, and you become a much more valuable developer to your team. So at this point, I'm not necessarily telling you which capabilities you need to go after, but I do want you to go through this thought process when you're thinking about what capabilities you might start tackling next. Don't just think about what's sexy. Don't just think about what everybody's talking about. Think about the impact that it's going to have and go with the highest possible impact in any of the categories that we've talked about, or even some categories that we haven't talked about. Maybe there are other things that I've missed as far as like the ways that your capabilities can impact what's going on around you. But go through this thought process and don't let your capability selection just happen at random, accidentally. Let it be intentional. So let's put a pause to it. And after I just told you I'm not going to tell you some capabilities, I do want to give you a few ideas. So I've mentioned languages, and I'm not super interested in learning new languages, because I think that the language that we learn, or the technology that we learn, might just it's kind of fleeting. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Just like my reason thing, I learned a good lesson by putting so much of a personal investment in one language. It ended up just not being that useful. But there are plenty of hard skill and mindset technology or capabilities that are extremely important, that transcend all of the different possibilities, like all the different technologies that you could learn. So a few of those are, and I already mentioned TDD. You will never find a set of capabilities, which that's what TDD is. It really represents a set of capabilities. You'll never find a set of capabilities that is more of a boost in the direction of senior developer. You'll never find one. If you want a surefire way to adopt the skills and the mindset of a senior developer, then throw yourself into test-driven development, which is writing tests first and then the production code, the implementation code to make the test pass. Red-green refactor is another way that people call it. test-driven development I've seen it happen time after time after time. When developers can really invest themselves in test-driven development and get disciplined about it, then oh my goodness, they metamorphosize in front of everybody's eyes. It's amazing. One warning about TDD though, TDD is as a developer, if you choose to start doing TDD without your team and your boss's buy-in, it's kind of like a mechanic who, you give them a car and you tell them to change the oil, but instead of just changing the oil, they also rebuild the engine, and they rebuild the gas intake system, and they rebuild. It's like a mechanic that went way too far. Oh, and then they give you the bill for it, not just for the oil change, but also for the rebuilding of all those things. That's what it's like to be a developer who does TDD without team and business buy-in. So don't take Byron's word to do TDD and then just go start doing it. Okay. It's dangerous. I've been there. I've done that. I've ruined relationships. Been close to getting fired. And so don't do it. And if you get to the point, this is actually, I'll throw this out there. This is free. You didn't pay for this part. If you go down the road of TDD and you really do get invested in TDD, what will happen? And it happens almost every single time. You will become a zealot. You will become somebody who is so into it. You love it so much that it becomes almost a religious thing. It becomes almost a moral thing. Like, oh, if I don't do TDD here, I'm doing myself a disservice. I'm doing my team a disservice if I'm not doing TDD. And the reality is, it's true and it's not. It's not true because the business didn't decide that that's the level of quality that they wanted, or they didn't have the right amount of information that they needed to make a good decision about whether or not they would have TDD, whether or not they would have that kind of practices that produce that kind of high quality code. And on the other hand, it's true because if companies truly knew what bad quality code could do to their company, has done to other companies, then they would be stupid to not try their hardest to do things like TDD to make sure that those things don't happen to themselves. So it's a two-sided coin, and the only way to get on both sides of that coin is to get your company and your leadership and your team to buy into it. So, okay, that's the big disclaimer about TDD. The other thing, and I'll give you all a chance to chime in too. If you've got some capabilities that you think are really, really high impact, you want to throw them out there, I'll give you a chance. Another thing that is very high impact, and it transcends languages, is design patterns. Now, some people have said, well, I work in functional programming languages, therefore I don't need design patterns. And that's just wrong. Functional programming languages might do some things for you automatically, but you still need to understand the patterns by which people make great software and make great decisions and implement great decisions. Design patterns transcend functional, object-oriented procedural languages. I'll get you in a second, Crisanto. So design patterns is another interesting capability, because there's like 20 something of them or more, and you can learn just a handful and completely rock it. In fact, you could even say, okay, I'm going to learn one design pattern per year, and in 5 years, that's kind of slow. But if in 5 years, having 5 design patterns, as long as you pick the highest impact design patterns, then you'll be a force to be reckoned with. And if you're wondering which design patterns might be the highest impact, I'll give you a few. My opinions now. These are true for me. It might be true for you too. One is factory pattern. If you're interested in learning design patterns and you want something high impact, then factory pattern is hands down the most useful, most frequently used design pattern you'll ever use. Next is strategy pattern. It's another one that is like, this is everybody needs to know strategy pattern. And then if you can learn how to consistently put those two together and use them together, then you might not need to learn any other design patterns. Now, don't quote me on that. I've got a video editor that's going to be watching this and trying to pull out quotes. That cannot be a quote. I don't want that out there on the web. The other design patterns are incredibly important too. But thinking about things from the perspective of trying to intentionally pick the highest impact, then I would definitely go with design patterns as a whole, but then factory pattern, strategy pattern, and then from there it all keeps on getting better and better. So I'll stop there. Those are two things that I think that if you can invest in the next year or two in TDD and in design patterns, your hard skills and your soft skills will both grow at the same time.